Hey there, fellow deep divers. Before we get started, I just got to give a shout out to our sponsor,
Oh, yeah.
Sheba Coffee and Nika Cow. Their matcha lattes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've been like fueling all my deep dives lately.
Nice.
And we need all the brain power we can get
Yeah,
for a topic like today's.
for sure.
So we are going deep into avian influenza.
Right.
You've probably heard of it as bird flu in the news,
Yeah.
but how much do you really know about it?
Right.
We've got excerpts from Wikipedia on avian influenza,
Mm-hmm.
a recent CBS News article about an outbreak in Georgia,
Interesting.
and the CDC's own H5 bird flu situation summary.
Great.
So we're going to unpack some serious science,
Okay.
explore some of the real risks,
Right.
and uncover what's happening right now in 2025.
Yeah, and believe me, there are some surprising twists and turns in this story.
Oh, like what?
Like the role dairy cows are playing in this outbreak.
What?
Yeah. We'll also look at why a potential bird flu pandemic is causing such concern among experts.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Worldwide.
So let's unpack this.
Okay.
What exactly is avian influenza?
Well, avian influenza or bird flu is a type of influenza, a virus,
Okay.
and as the name suggests, it mainly affects birds.
Right.
But the concerning part is it can sometimes jump to mammals, including
so
us.
Okay.
And here's the unsettling part. It's what's called enzootic.
Enzootic.
Enzootic, yeah.
I'm not familiar with that term.
It basically means that the virus is constantly present within those bird populations.
Oh, wow.
It's constantly circulating.
So they just like have the flu all the time.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, that's a bit unsettling. But I guess that explains why it's such a persistent threat.
Exactly. And speaking of threats,
Oh, yeah.
we need to talk about the two main classifications of avian influenza.
Okay.
We have low pathogenic avian influenza, or LPAI, and high pathogenic avian influenza, or HPAI.
Okay, so LPAI, HPAI.
Yeah, and our sources describe some pretty striking differences between the two.
Yeah, the descriptions of the symptoms in chickens were pretty vivid.
Yeah.
LPAI seems like it's just a mild cold for them.
Yeah, like some sniffles.
Yeah, a bit of lethargy, but HPAI.
Totally different story.
Yeah, breathing difficulties.
Yeah.
A massive drop in egg production.
And sadly, even sudden death.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's important to remember, though,
Yeah.
that LPAI, HPAI classification, it's specific to chickens.
Exactly.
It doesn't necessarily tell us how dangerous a strain would be to humans.
Exactly. A highly pathogenic strain in chickens might not be as deadly to humans.
Okay, good point. So how does this virus travel across the globe?
Well,
The Wikipedia article had a fascinating map
oh, yeah.
showing the migratory patterns of wild birds.
Right.
And it really hit home just how these birds can carry the virus over vast distances.
Yeah. It's remarkable, isn't it? And it's not even limited to direct contact.
What do you mean?
Like, their droppings, their saliva, even the water they come into contact with can carry the virus.
Oh.
So that's why biosecurity on poultry farms is absolutely critical,
Yeah.
especially given how rapidly this virus can spread.
Okay, so we've got birds carrying this virus crisscrossing continents,
Right.
but why aren't more humans getting infected?
Right.
What's stopping this from spreading like wildfire among us?
That's where the species barrier comes in.
Okay,
It's what normally prevents that widespread human infection.
so like a safeguard,
Yeah, you could think of it like that.
but not foolproof.
Right.
Okay, tell me about that.
But the science behind it is really interesting.
Okay,
Bird flu viruses tend to bind to different receptors in our respiratory tracts
Okay.
than human flu viruses do.
so like a mismatch.
Yeah, like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Ah, okay, I get it.
And then there are other cellular differences that make it harder for the bird flu to establish itself in humans.
Okay.
But
Oh,
this is where things get a bit concerning.
okay.
That species barrier isn't foolproof.
All right, so this is where it gets really interesting.
It-
Tell me why this barrier isn't as solid as we'd like it to be.
One of the biggest concerns with RNA viruses like influenza is that they mutate constantly.
Right.
This is called antigenic drift.
Okay.
And over time, these tiny mutations can accumulate and lead to a strain that can effectively infect humans.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so it's like a lock being slowly rekeyed until the wrong key suddenly fits.
Yikes, that's a scary thought.
It is.
And then there's this thing called genetic reassortment, right?
Right.
That's when two different flu strains infect the same host,
Mhm.
and they can essentially like swap genes,
Yeah.
creating a hybrid virus.
That's right. Like they're trading parts of their genetic code
Oh, wow.
to make a whole new combination.
Okay.
And pigs often get mentioned as potential mixing vessels.
Oh, really?
Because they have both bird and human type receptors.
Oh, so they could get both.
Yeah, so a pig could theoretically be infected with both a human flu virus and an avian flu virus at the same time,
Oh, wow.
giving them the opportunity to swap genes.
And create a new strain.
Yeah, potentially.
Okay, so we've got this virus mutating, potentially swapping genes.
Right.
This is definitely not comforting.
Yeah.
But what about the outbreaks that are happening right now?
Well.
That CBS News article that we have mentions bird flu being detected on a commercial poultry farm in Georgia.
Yes.
And it's the first time it's been found in a commercial setting in the state
Right.
during
Yeah.
this particular outbreak.
Right. This one started back in 2022.
Okay, and this is a major concern because Georgia's poultry industry is enormous.
It is.
An outbreak like this could be devastating.
For sure.
The article quotes Georgia Agriculture Commissioner Tyler Harper,
Mm-hmm.
and he expresses just how serious this is.
Yeah. What does he say?
He says, "This is a serious threat to Georgia's #1 industry and the livelihoods of thousands of Georgians who make their living in our state's poultry industry."
Wow.
So it's a stark reminder of the economic impact this virus can have.
Yeah, for sure.
But the story doesn't end there.
Oh.
This is where things take an even more unexpected turn.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
The CDC data reveals that the H5N1 subtype
Mm-hmm.
is now widespread in U.S. dairy cows.
Dairy cows.
Yeah, and there's evidence suggesting it might be spreading from cows to humans.
Yeah. Cows.
Yeah.
That's a curveball I did not see coming.
I know, right?
How is that even possible?
That's what everyone's trying to figure out.
Yeah.
It's a new development in this outbreak.
Really is.
And it's got scientists scrambling to understand what this
I
means.
bet.
The CDC's findings are pretty eye-opening.
What did they find?
A recent study revealed that 7% of dairy workers tested
Okay.
had been infected with H5N1,
Wow.
and half of them didn't even show any symptoms.
So they were spreading it without even knowing.
Potentially, yeah.
That's wild.
So it seems like we're only beginning to grasp the full scope of this virus and its potential for surprises.
It really is a constantly evolving situation.
It is.
And it raises so many questions,
Yeah.
not just about the virus itself,
Mm-hmm.
but about the wider implications for human health economics and even ethics.
Speaking of ethics, I know we have to tread carefully here.
Yeah.
But the thought of mass culling to contain this virus
Yeah.
is unsettling.
Yeah. It's a complex issue.
It is.
On the one hand, culling infected birds and potentially other animals might be the fastest way to stop the virus from spreading
Right.
and potentially preventing a pandemic.
Right.
It's a drastic measure,
It is.
but one aimed at protecting human lives.
I can understand that argument,
Yeah,
but it feels like a difficult choice.
it is.
What about the welfare of the animals being culled?
Right.
Are there alternatives we should be exploring?
Absolutely. Those are valid concerns.
Yeah.
Mass culling raises all sorts of questions about animal welfare,
Yeah.
especially when millions of birds are involved.
Right.
It also has a significant impact on farmers and the poultry industry,
Mhm.
not to mention potential consequences for food security.
Right, especially in countries where poultry is a vital source of protein.
Exactly.
It's like a ripple effect,
It is.
impacting so many different aspects of our lives.
Yeah.
You mentioned alternatives to mass culling.
Yeah.
What are some of the options being considered?
Well, vaccination is a key area of focus.
Okay.
Researchers are constantly working to develop more effective vaccines for poultry,
Hmm.
aiming for broader protection against different strains.
Okay.
Improved biosecurity measures on farms are also crucial.
Like what kinds of things?
Things like strict hygiene protocols,
Okay.
controlling access to poultry houses,
Right.
and monitoring bird health regularly.
So it's about taking a multi-pronged approach.
Yes,
Focusing on prevention as well as containment.
exactly.
But even with these measures in place, the possibility of a pandemic still looms large, doesn't it?
It does, and it's a threat we need to take seriously.
Yeah.
Pandemic preparedness requires a global effort,
Mhm.
encompassing everything from robust surveillance systems
Okay.
to the development of vaccines and antiviral medications.
Right.
We also need to have plans in place for how to respond effectively to an outbreak and
Yeah.
minimize its impact on healthcare systems and society as a whole.
It sounds incredibly complex.
It is.
Like coordinating this massive global response
Yeah,
to a threat we can't even fully predict.
that's right. It's a monumental task.
It is.
And it involves not just scientists and healthcare professionals,
Right.
but governments, international organizations, and even individuals.
Speaking of individuals,
Yeah.
what can WE do to protect ourselves
Right.
and play a part in preventing the spread of avian influenza?
Yeah, it can feel overwhelming when we're talking about pandemics and global health threats.
It really can.
Yeah, but there are steps we can all take.
Okay, good.
The most important thing is to stay informed.
Right.
Relying on credible sources like the CDC and WHO for accurate information.
So we can avoid all that misinformation.
Exactly, and make informed decisions about our health and safety.
You know, it strikes me that staying informed is a core principle of the deep dive.
It really is.
It is.
And when it comes to avian influenza specifically,
Yeah.
there are practical steps we can take.
Okay, what can we do?
If you handle poultry practice, good hygiene,
Okay.
wear protective gear when necessary, and be vigilant about monitoring your flocks for any signs of illness.
So common sense precautions.
Exactly.
Be aware of the risks.
Right. And it's also about being mindful of our interactions with wild birds,
Okay.
especially in areas where avian influenza is known to be circulating.
So we should just stay away from birds altogether.
Not necessarily. You don't have to avoid nature altogether,
Okay.
but just observe birds from a safe distance and avoid contact with their droppings or any sick or dead birds.
Respect the boundaries.
Yeah, a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And if you're traveling to regions where avian influenza is prevalent, make sure to check for any travel advisories or recommendations from health organizations like the CDC.
Right, being a responsible traveler.
Exactly, not just for your own sake,
Yeah.
but for the health and safety of the communities you visit.
That's a great point.
It
This whole conversation has been incredibly eye-opening.
has been.
It's made me realize just how interconnected we all are,
We really are.
and how our actions, even seemingly small ones,
Yeah.
can have this ripple effect on a global scale.
I think that's a key takeaway from all of this.
It is.
Avian influenza isn't just this distant threat
Right.
or something that only concerns scientists or farmers.
Yeah.
It's an issue that has the potential to touch all of our lives.
Right.
It highlights this intricate web connecting human health, animal health, and the environment.
You know, I remember back in 2020 when the COVID-19 pandemic first hit.
Yeah.
It felt like the world was turned upside down.
It did.
People were scared, uncertain, desperate for information. I'm hoping we can avoid that kind of chaos if a bird flu pandemic were to happen.
Yeah, that's a valid point. The COVID-19 pandemic taught us valuable lessons about
Okay.
clear communication, public trust, and coordinated action.
Yeah.
We saw how misinformation and panic could make a crisis even worse.
So it's not just about having the scientific knowledge and the medical solutions, but about fostering a sense of community
Yeah.
and shared responsibility.
Absolutely. Open communication from public health officials, transparent information sharing, and a willingness to work together are crucial.
Because like we need this global shift in mindset
Yeah.
from focusing on individual self-preservation
Yeah.
to recognizing that our collective well-being depends on everyone's actions.
It's about understanding that we're all in this together,
Yeah.
facing a shared challenge
Right.
that requires collaboration, compassion, and a commitment to the greater good.
This deep dive has really shifted my perspective.
It's been a good one.
It has.
Yeah.
It's not just about the science of avian influenza,
Yeah.
but about the broader human story, the ethical dilemmas,
Right.
the economic consequences,
Yes.
and our ability to come together in the face of uncertainty.
I couldn't agree more. It's a complex and evolving situation, but one that we can navigate with knowledge preparedness and a sense of shared responsibility.
Okay, I'm ready to take on part 3.
All right, let's do it.
We've laid the groundwork,
Yep.
explored the complexities, and now it's time to confront the elephant in the room,
Okay.
the potential for a bird flu pandemic.
Okay. Deep divers, we've reached the final stage of our exploration.
It has been quite a journey.
It really has, and it's time to tackle the big question.
Okay, shoot.
Could avian influenza trigger a global pandemic?
That's the question that keeps a lot of scientists and public health experts up at night.
Like that.
And while we can't predict the future for sure,
Right.
understanding all the factors at play is really crucial for preparing.
All right, so first things first, what exactly defines a pandemic?
Right.
I know it's not just about how deadly a disease is, right?
You're absolutely right. A pandemic isn't only determined by how dangerous a disease is.
Okay.
It's about scale and spread.
Okay.
It means an epidemic that has crossed borders.
impacting huge populations across multiple continents,
Wow.
or even worldwide.
So global.
An outbreak that's gone global.
So it's about severity, A&D, widespread transmission.
Exactly.
And with avian influenza, the fear is that it could evolve to spread easily between humans,
Right.
potentially leading to a pandemic scenario.
Yeah, we've seen this happen before with other influenza viruses.
Right? Like the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic.
Exactly. That was devastating.
Those numbers are really sobering.
They are. The Spanish flu is a stark reminder of just how impactful a pandemic can be. Estimates suggest that it infected a third of the global population.
A third.
Yeah, and resulted in tens of millions of deaths.
Wow, even with all the medical and public health advancements we've made since then, a
Yeah,
pandemic on that scale would still be a huge challenge.
it would be.
So focusing on avian influenza,
Yeah.
what makes H5N1 and H7N9 so worrisome?
Yeah, in terms of pandemic potential?
Yeah.
Well, there are several factors. Firstly, as we've already talked about, they've shown that they can jump from birds to humans.
Right.
Secondly, the fatality rates for these subtypes are really high,
Especially H5N1.
especially H5N1. Yeah.
The WHO data shows a case fatality rate of over 50% for H5N1.
That's right.
So over half of those infected die.
Yeah.
That's an incredibly high fatality rate.
It is.
It makes the need for effective prevention and treatment strategies that much more urgent.
Absolutely. And while H7N9 has a lower fatality rate,
Okay.
it's still a big threat because it can cause severe illness.
Right. And humans don't really have any pre-existing immunity to these subtypes.
That's right.
So that means that if a pandemic did happen, most of the population would be vulnerable.
A vast majority, yes.
It's kind of unsettling to think about how susceptible we could be to a new avian influenza strain.
It is.
But I am holding on to the fact that scientists are monitoring these viruses
Right.
and working on ways to mitigate the risks.
Yes.
You mentioned earlier that candidate vaccines exist.
For both H5N1 and H7N9.
That's got to be a good sign, right?
It is a positive development.
Okay, good.
Having candidate vaccines means we're not starting from scratch if a pandemic were to happen.
Right.
They could potentially be produced quickly and distributed to protect the population.
But even with vaccines in development, there's no guarantee of complete protection.
That's right. Vaccine effectiveness depends on several factors.
Like what?
Well, like how well the vaccine matches the strain of the virus that's circulating.
Okay, so that's a challenge.
It is. And there's also the challenge of manufacturing and distributing vaccines quickly and fairly on a global scale.
Right, to everyone who needs it.
Exactly.
Okay, so vaccines aren't our only line of defense.
Right. We also have antiviral medications.
Oh.
They can be really important for treating influenza infections and potentially reducing how bad the illness gets.
Right, and preventing complications.
That's right.
That's good to keep in mind.
Yeah.
So the threat of a pandemic is definitely a serious concern. But it's reassuring to know that we're not completely defenseless.
Exactly. We have tools and strategies in place.
Right.
And the scientific community is always working to improve our understanding of these viruses
Yeah.
and how prepared we are for potential pandemics.
So knowing all of this, what can people do to prepare for a possible bird flu pandemic?
Yeah.
Thinking back to the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, there was so much panic,
Yeah.
uncertainty.
A lot of fear.
People were stockpiling supplies, and misinformation was spreading like crazy. How can we approach this in a more informed and level-headed way?
You raise a really important point.
Yeah.
I think one of the most valuable lessons we learned from COVID-19 is the power of clear communication, public trust, and community.
Yeah.
When people are scared and confused, it's easy to fall for misinformation.
Right, and make decisions out of fear.
Yeah. So the first and most important step is to stay informed.
Right.
You've got to rely on sources you can trust,
Yeah.
like the CDC, the WHO, and your local public health authorities.
So be critical of information,
Yes, especially online.
where things can spread so quickly.
Exactly.
So beyond staying informed,
Yeah.
what else can we do?
Having a preparedness plan can make a big difference.
Okay, like what kinds of things?
Practical things, like having a supply of essential medications,
Okay,
food and water on hand, just in case.
so you're not caught off guard.
That's right.
Okay.
It's also smart to think about what you'd do if you or someone in your family got sick.
Right.
Like having a plan for isolating at home and knowing how to seek medical attention when you need it.
So being prepared is about practical planning,
Yeah.
but also mental preparedness.
Exactly. Having a plan in place can really help with the anxiety and uncertainty.
That comes with a pandemic.
Exactly.
It's not about living in fear.
No, not at all. It's about being empowered,
Right.
having knowledge and resources.
So we can respond effectively.
Exactly.
This whole conversation has been so insightful.
It has been a good one.
It has. We explored the science of avian influenza,
Hmm.
the complexities of a potential pandemic,
Right.
and even discussed concrete steps we can all take.
Yeah, to be prepared.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. It's been great.
To our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you valuable knowledge.
And a sense of empowerment.
Avian influenza is a serious issue,
Yeah, with potential global implications.
but we're not powerless.
Not at all.
By staying informed, taking proactive steps, and working together,
Yeah,
we can navigate this challenge.
together.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this episode.
Sounds good.
Don't forget to check out the show notes for links to all of our sources.
Yeah, great resources there.
Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.